finally got on here today. It looks like a good number though. So for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Andy Kaifong, secondary principal, just since January. Loving being here, and obviously the challenge of remote learning has just been amped up a little bit more with this re-entry to school. So joining me this afternoon from the leadership team, I'll get Matt James to introduce himself, and Kimberly Law, and I think Daniela Escatino, one of our VPs, is here also. But would you guys like just to say hello and introduce yourselves, please?
Kimberly, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Afternoon, Kimberly Law, Assistant Principal here at WSO, and I'll be helping Year 8 settle in as they return to school.
Hi, I can see a few familiar faces actually. My name's Matthew James, same position as Kimberly. I'm an Assistant Principal, and one of my responsibilities this year is Year 9.
Daniela, are you with us? No, she might be joining us later. I know that she had a meeting. So Daniela Escatino, one of our VPs, is also joining us, oversight for pastoral care, etc. So look, we will get moving. Our thinking for this afternoon is this. I will go through the learning model with you in as concise a terms as I can. So that's really the big portion of what people are wanting. Going through the questions that you sent in, and thank you for doing that. Obviously, understanding how learning looks in this 50-50 model is important. The second most important thing from your questions is health and safety. So I'll go through some of those. Having just done the session with the Year 7 parents, what worked really well was if you could put your questions on the chat, but address them to everyone. What I'll do once I've finished talking for about 20 minutes is we'll go back to the top of that chat and we'll go through those questions and respond to those. If you address them to everyone, that will mean that you can see them and there won't be repeats. That just makes things a little bit more efficient, and we'll do our best to answer those. If during the conversation you want to address a specific question to either Matt or Kimberly or Daniela, who is here now, I think, then you can do that also, and they will get back to you. Oh, I've just lost my Zoom. Oh, hang on, I've just lost Zoom. You still hear me?
Yep, we can still see you.
You can still see me as well?
Yes.
That's awkward.
Mute that once again.
So you can still see me and hear me, Kimberly?
Correct.
Oh, I've lost everything on my screen. Oh, hang on. Oh, I haven't. There we go. We're back. Okay. So what I'll start off with, as I said before, is the learning model and how this 50% works. Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Probably the biggest thing to start is this. The reason that we've brought Year 8 and 9 parents together is because in many ways, in simple terms, you are sharing a set of classrooms around the school. So if your child is in Year 8, you'll be using a designated set of classrooms around the school. And on the days where your children are not here, where the Year 8s are not here, the Year 9s will be using those rooms. Daniela, I can just see you. Would you like to introduce yourself before I move on?
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Escatino. I'm one of the Vice Principals in secondary. I might be familiar to some of you, others maybe not. Really excited to be working with you again from September, and hopefully this session will answer all of your questions, but if not, we are on hand to answer any of the ones afterwards.
Thanks, Daniela. So what we've done, all the decisions that we've made have been around several things. Obviously, staying within the KHDA restrictions and guidelines for health and safety. And secondly, being able to offer as full and comprehensive a program to your children in Year 8 or Year 9 over the course of however long this lasts. I think there's a tendency for us to think that this is going to end, and obviously we all hope that it might, but we know from last year that it went on for 16 weeks, obviously. We don't know how long this period of blended learning will remain for, or if there will be change. One of the things that I do know from the last 16 weeks at the end of last year is that systems will need changing, the rules will change that we have to abide by, and we will want to improve what we do weekly, either to improve the learning experience for your children, to make it more efficient, or to improve our health and safety guidelines, etc. So I know that we made changes almost every fortnight last year during the remote learning period. Some of them you will have been aware of, some of them you would have been less aware of. Some of them were actually guided by your feedback to us about how we could improve what we did. So that's a really important part of what we do. So effectively, when I speak to you now, you're either a year 8 or a year 9 parent. I suppose there might be a few people who are both. So what we're going to do is from the start, across a 2-week period, your children will experience 50% face-to-face learning at school and 50% remote learning from home. Now, in the interests of learning patterns and habits, what we've decided to do is alternate the days where they are in. So in week A, for example, year 8s will be in on Sunday, Tuesday and Thursday. And in week B, they will be in on Monday and Wednesday. So across a 10-day normal school period, they will attend school for 5 days. The year 9s will do the reverse of that. So on that week A, where the year 8s do 3 days, the year 9s will do 2. And in the following week, the year 9s will do 3 days. Now, again, the reason for not having them in more than that is really around health and safety and being able to offer a full program to everyone. So when they are in school, they will be in not in normal classes. So what we've done from a health and safety point of view is we have centred year 8 and year 9 across 2 floors, basically at the end of the phase 4 corridor, the south end of the phase 4 corridor, in the exact same space up on the first floor. There's about 18 classrooms that are available for them, and in the early stages, all of their classes will be delivered in those classrooms. Now, obviously what you're used to is that your children move around school. So they go somewhere for maths, they change floors for English, they change floors for DT, they change floors for PE, whatever. So for health and safety reasons and for the first few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to deliver all learning from those specific 18 classrooms. The reason for that is partly your children haven't been at school for nearly 5 months, so coming back will be a novelty in itself. They're coming back into something that is not what they're used to, and so we're just trying to make things simple and safe as possible. So hopefully you saw the entry-exit video that Kimberly put out yesterday for years 8 and 9. So you'll know that there is a specific entry route for your children to school and then to their specific set of classrooms. So they will come in using that route and they will exit using that route every day, and then they will receive all of their learning in those 18 classrooms that I've just talked about. The idea, of course, being that it's nice and simple, it's nice and safe, it's nice and easy. For at least the first 2 or 3 weeks, they get used to that routine, and then we will start, probably, assuming everything goes well, we'll start allowing a little bit of travel to specialist classrooms for example, DT and science and foods, etc., and PE. So our commitment has always been, when we went into remote learning in March of this year, our commitment to you as parents and to our students was always to have a full offering. So I know that some schools chose to do it differently, and I'm not criticising them, but some schools chose to reduce their offering. Maybe some didn't offer some subjects, others reduced it. What we wanted to do is keep our timetable and offer your children the full and broad experience that they got if they had been face-to-face. Now, to varying degrees, depending on what your experience was at the end of last year, I think we did that exceptionally well. KHDA thought we did it well. I know there's things we can improve on, but we were really pleased with that. We want to take the same thinking into this year, so that despite your children being at school for 50% of the time, the experience that they get, whether it's in school face-to-face or remote at home, will be equally as valuable. It will be a slightly different experience, but equally as valuable as each other. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. The reason for alternating the weeks is so that they do not miss the same classes every week. So in 1 week, they'll do the Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. The following week, they'll do the Monday, Wednesday, and then back to week A. So there's a pattern to that for them, which will also, we think, be helpful. Now, the platform, as you're aware, because you're all involved in the remote learning from secondary, or most of you, I shouldn't say all of you because I don't know exactly who's in the room, but most of you will be used to the Microsoft Teams platform. So lessons will still be planned and delivered using the Microsoft Teams platform, regardless of whether your children are in school or whether they are at home. Now, when I say that the experience will be slightly different but no less valuable, so at the moment, the health and safety guidelines give us room in our classrooms for between 18 and 20 students, no more. That's a standard set out, it is socially distanced, and that makes it safe. So there will be 20 children allowed in potentially in one classroom, and then what we've got is this. The thing that we have to factor in is some of you as parents will be sitting here knowing that you've opted for 100% remote learning. I think the last time I looked, there was between 20 and 25 families that had opted for their children in year 8 or year 9 to stay at home 100% of the time. That reduces the class numbers a little bit. There will be a little bit of absence. I suspect there might be a few more people who might choose remote learning. So we're hoping with the reduced numbers that we will fit all the children in our classroom, okay? And so they will be there. For the children who've chosen remote learning 100% of the time, they will access the lessons the same way they did at the end of last year. So if Matt is teaching a class of year 8 English on site here at school, he could have 20 year 8 or year 9 students in front of him. He will be himself in front of his computer sometimes, standing up in front of the classroom sometimes, wearing a microphone so that regardless of where he is, the children who've chosen 100% remote or who might be sick on a particular day can still access that class. They will still see him and hear him wherever he is in that classroom. So they'll get the material, they'll know the exercises, and they will be able to interact with him and he with them. And they will also be able to interact with other peers in their class. Might be in a classroom, or it might be another family that's chosen 100% remote learning at home. So that's what I mean. The experiences will be slightly different, but what we're saying is no less valuable in that sense. So, and then what we're going to do, so we're going to hold the year 8s and 9s in their home corridors, if you like, across those 2 floors for at least the first fortnight. Keep it simple. Get them used to their patterns. Once we're comfortable that your children are familiar with entry, exit, health and safety, social distancing at school, then we will start to introduce the notion of travel for practical subjects and even PE as well. So we're just trying to manage that for them and for us in many ways. Obviously, what we're trying to do is keep everyone safe and keep everyone free from COVID. So that's some of the thinking that sits in behind there. Platform there, and really, in a nutshell, that's how it looks for your children. The questions that came in, and I completely understand them, were things like, I don't understand the 50-50. So that was one of the key points that we wanted to make to you today. The 50-50 is around actually, once your child is in a year 8, they're in for the whole day or they're out for a whole day. Okay, and that's how it works. What we plan to do from here is that we will issue you, as a parent of a year 8 or a year 9, a 1-page summary of the learning model, a wee map of entry and exit. So you've got all the information, hopefully on 1 page, that you need to understand what it is that your children will be doing and how they'll be doing it. So that's that. From a health and safety point of view, there is an enormous amount of work going on in the health and safety area. So the obvious ones, your children need to bring all of the water and all of the food that they will need for every given day. Now, please don't hold me to this, but I have heard that Slices, the cafeteria, will have the facility for you to order food and for that food to be delivered to your children's room, okay, because they're in that home corridor. So that could happen, but I need to wait for confirmation of that. What you should be planning on is that each day from the first day of school that your children will bring enough water and enough food to last them the day. The other thing, because of the weather during the day, is that they will have to stay inside and inside their home corridors. So they will be within their home corridors. If you're in, let's just say 8A or 9A, you will be sharing a tutor room or children. So you'll have a home room that you can use. But obviously things like, I'm going to say that lockers will not be able to be used in the first period because they're just another health and safety concern. So health and safety wise, they'll come in, obviously food, water each day. The other thing that they'll need to bring is their own device, obviously every day, their own pens and pencils. We are looking at some subjects at the moment that have equipment where students wouldn't normally have it. So paintbrushes, we talked about foods, aprons the other day. So we're looking at ways of sanitizing those between use. So again, every sort of detail around the health and safety is being sort of considered. Masks will need to be worn at all times, obviously. Social distancing is already worked out in the classrooms. There are, as you will have seen in all the malls and all the shops you go into, there are dots on the floors and there are signs encouraging students to wash hands and travel. So they'll travel on the right side of corridors, socially distanced, travel back the other way, just as we do on the roads. And there is cleaning as much as we can between classes. So most or all of the fabric seating and furniture is being removed because that's a risk. So your children will be sitting on plastic, obviously plastic desk chairs. The tabletops are hard. They will be cleaned obviously every night, but even during the day, they will be cleaned as much as they can be between classes. We have, as a result, structured a transition period between classes. So in a normal situation, your children would travel to teachers and their classes. In this model, because they're based in their home corridors for as much as we can, teachers are the ones that are moving. So in order to make that happen efficiently, we've put a transition period between each block. Now, in those transition blocks, we're mindful that actually your children will be in the same corridor with the same children each day during this period. So in those breaks, they can get up, stretch their legs, go to the bathroom, get a drink, have a snack, whatever they need to do, because it's going to be different for them. Weather-wise, until we're allowed outside, so for at least September, I'm thinking maybe half of October, breaks will need to be inside also. So inside, socially distanced, it's unusual, but it's necessary for what we're doing. And again, it's for the safety, it's for the health and safety of everyone that's there. So, so that's how that works. They've got their own designated toilets. I think, Kimberly, there's a seat upstairs and a seat downstairs for 8s and 9s. So they are only for the use of your children that are there. There will be a cleaner outside of those toilets. My understanding is all day, every day, they are either cleaned at every use or every hour, whichever comes first. And as I say, they are dedicated just for your children. Entry and exit is more or less their own, and their home corridor is their own. So probably from a health and safety point of view, that captures most things for you. So I'm thinking that we'll go to questions and we'll see what's there, and then we'll see if we can respond to those, because there's quite a few of them by the looks. So we'll just start from the top, if I can. hoping that the sound quality is improved from some people. I think most people are muted, so that's okay. What about in tutor class? So, oh yeah, so the tutor, your children will still have tutors. So they'll be issued, tomorrow you should get a communication from us with both the house and the tutor in it. You will also get some information on a Zoom session with the tutor. So if all of your children have Mrs. X as their tutor, there will be a time allocated for you to sit with them and go through, again, familiarisation, relationship building, etc. with them. We have gone back to horizontal tutor groups. So normally you would be used to vertical. So in each group, 7, 8, 9, 10. The reason we've gone back to horizontal is, of course, so that we can retain the year level bubbles that we've got. So your children will only be in a tutor group with other students of the same year level. So Damon, I hope that answers your question. Oh, there we go. Actually, Daniela's already answered it. Sorry, Daniela. What else? Heading down. Oops. Matt and Kimberly, if you see a question that you want to chime into, then by all means. I'm just scrolling my tutor will be in the same groups. No, so TZ Gal, in terms of specialist spaces, they won't have labs and DT workshops to start with. What we'll do for the first fortnight is that the practical subjects will deliver some theory and as an introduction to the year. Hopefully, once we've got our systems established and we've got our students comfortable with moving around schools safely, then they'll be able to travel to labs and DT from there. So the expectation is that they will get the full offering from both the science and the DT, because that's what you've identified. But in the first couple of weeks, that learning will be delivered from the classroom. So I hope that answers your question.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, I just want to say about tutor groups. Parents will be notified tomorrow of their children's house and tutor, and there'll be information going out tomorrow as well about the Meet the Tutor session on the 1st of September. It's unlikely your child will have the same form tutor because we're having to move to same age groupings, not mixed. So this is a way of obviously making sure that students aren't cross-contaminating, keeping them where we need to keep them. So please look out for that tomorrow, and that should also tell you which house they're in, if there have been any changes, and that's all outlined in the letter.
Thanks, Daniela. Arush, your question about 100% e-learning. So the directive from the KHDA was that every family needed to have the option to remain in 100% remote learning, which is fine. So as I say, some people have opted for that. Can I just say we will be in contact next week. If you opted for 100% remote learning, that doesn't need to be confirmed. We want to talk to you just to confirm that you still want that next week, and we'll put that on our system and that will happen. So your children will access the lessons as they did in the remote learning period last year. So in some ways, no difference for you. The great advantage for you as parents who opt for that is that the systems that we're using and the platform that we're using, i.e. Microsoft Teams, is not changing. Staff are really familiar with it. Your children will probably be really familiar with it. So that should be a seamless start to school for you. So Arush, I'm hoping that's okay for you. Daniela, first day of school for year 8.
I've put that on there already, so that will come out tomorrow. You'll have an outline of what the student induction day will look like on the 1st of September, and then students will be accessing their learning from the 2nd.
Thank you. I can't see that there's a question there about primary. I've answered the question about DT labs. Yes, so Charanya, your question about I've opted for 100% online learning initially, is it possible to switch over? In our view, the option is always yours as parents to what model you choose. The systems that we're designing and planning will cope for 100% of our year 8s or year 9s on site on the day that they're scheduled. They will also cope with 5 or 10% being out for 100% remote learning. So Charanya, if you decided if you put down, for example, that you wanted 100% remote learning for a month or 2 months, if you change your mind after 2 weeks, then if you just let us know, your child can come back to school the next day. We're ready for that. We don't have to change anything to have them back in any given day. Likewise, I guess the other case is the same. For those parents who are okay to come back to school from the get-go, from the start, if after a week you decide that your preference would be to go to remote learning, if you could just let us know, we can cater for all of that. So for our thinking, the choice remains firmly in your hands. Obviously, we don't mind which you choose. We think that we're doing our best to offer a quality program, whether you're 100% remote or 100% at school from there. Okay, so Kimberly's answered that question. Thank you. Yeah, so TZ Gal, the question about will the teacher be conducting both online and in-class sessions? Yes, they will. There's a reason for that. The reason is that we obviously want the students in the class and in the remote learning to get the same experience and the same information. As soon as you start changing that, you get a little bit of inconsistency with what you're doing. So what will the most difficult thing will be if there are numbers in the class that are larger than the capacity of the classroom, then there will be a bit more movement required between 2 classrooms. So for example, Matt's Year 8 English class will be timetabled into 2 classrooms, most often which will be across the corridor from each other. If in an ideal world we have 20 students attending on that day, then they will all be housed in the same classroom. If we were per chance to get, let's just say 22 or 24, we have another classroom that we will have to use as an overflow classroom. Those students will almost access it like remote, but actually Matt will still be asked to travel between the 2 classrooms. It is an added challenge, but actually we need to take that on in order to create the offering that we want to create for your children. So that's going to be a bit of a change for our staff, but we will get used to that. Also understand that if we're teaching really well, none of our teachers should be talking all the time in front of the class. Your children do not want to listen to us talking for 60 minutes. So in a normal situation, we would do a bit of an introduction, we would set an activity, we would give some time for your children to work independently on that. That means that the teacher can float between the 2 classrooms and support students. So to me, whilst it's different and it will be a challenge, it is doable. So TZ Gal, I hope that answers your question there.
Excuse me. Hello?
Rain.
Yes, please. Because related to this issue, I mentioned it in the chats, but maybe you didn't see it. Will the teacher, will the kids who are doing online, on the days they're doing online learning, will they be able to communicate with the teacher if they have any issues or any questions? How will that be handled?
Yeah, so yeah, good question, Rain. Thank you for that. Yes, so the combination of using Teams and the Bluetooth microphones that we're getting means that there can be interaction between teacher and student at home, between student at home and teacher at school, and even between student at home and student at school. So one of the things that we got better at the end of last year as a result of students saying we'd like the facility to be able to work together more with our peers. So we were starting to utilise the Microsoft Teams package to allow students to work together online from their homes. So it's a bit complex, but basically we set up channels, we put different students into different channels. Doesn't matter whether they're at school or at home, they're still able to collaborate. But if your child, if Maria was at home, for example, she would be able to talk to Matt, Matt would be able to listen to her and speak back to her as well. So that interaction remains the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mohammed, would the school share openly the status about COVID-19? That was your first question. Mohammed, we would not intend to hide anything from you. It's not in our best interest to do that. Obviously, you place an enormous amount of trust in us to deliver that program and the health and safety requirements to your children. We will be absolutely upfront with you in terms of how that's going. Is your health and safety system audited by KHDA? We had KHDA in yesterday doing a tour of our classrooms and buildings to make sure that we were fitting within guidelines. Would you be providing a health and safety update to parents? Yes, we know that the communication between us and you is super important. It always has been. I think it's even more so now. So we'll work out systems to regularly update you with things and make them accessible, and also not just accessible in real time, but also perhaps asynchronously, because we know that some people don't get them on their emails, etc. What would a student who have decided to do remote learning lose? I'm going to say to you that our commitment to you is that our students who are remote learning will lose nothing. One of the biggest concerns that came out of the feedback from you and the feedback from the students that I spoke with at the end, what they missed was the interaction with their peers. So they missed seeing their peers on a day-to-day basis to laugh with, to eat with, etc. Now, that to some degree is alleviated by coming back to school. They still can't sit in groups and hug and kiss and do all of those sorts of things, but they can be in the same room. They can speak to people face to face of their own age. They will have break time. They will have movement. So I'm going to say to you, our commitment is to make the face-to-face learning and the remote learning as valuable as each other. Different experience, but as valuable as each other. And your final question, Mohammed, was, my mouse is not working. Do you really expect that a student of age 10 can put a mask for 8 hours? Yeah, look, it's not easy. Look, I don't have the answer. The expectation is that it is going to have to be that if you're at school. So apart from that, I don't have another answer for that. Having 50-50 remote at school will not solve the problem for working parents. So can't you have, based on parents' input, a possibility of students for 100% of time at school? Yeah, look, facility-wise, health and safety-wise, that's not possible with all year levels. If you wanted to make a special case to us, I'm happy to speak with you individually, but we need to retain some sort of, I guess, consistency really across the school for what we're doing. 7, would you enforce PCR tests to all students? We're waiting for some guidance from GEMS around the requirement for PCR tests, whether they'll be required prior to coming back to school. Our staff were just given a declaration form, I think, in the last 12 hours to complete in terms of returning to site. And then what would happen? 5 or 6 showed COVID-19 symptoms. What would the school do? Did you practice and simulate all these scenarios? So, yeah, so as best we can, the site team have been modelling health and safety. So from a beginning of the school day experience, this is what your children will have. They'll enter the school, they'll be thermally scanned. If your child is hotter than 37.5 degrees, we have a cool down area next to the thermal camera. Of course, you know better than I do that the external temperature of school will be hotter than 37.5 degrees for possibly at least the next month. So, and also the other thing we don't know is how long your children would have been outside for before they come into interaction with the thermal camera. So we've got a cool down area, there'll be water, etc. for that. We'll thermally scan again. If your children remain at a temperature that is of risk, they will then be taken to the medical area, which has all been set up, it's all been approved, and they'll be isolated there. They'll be given a further chance to cool down. If they still remain a risk, then you'll be contacted and pickup will need to happen within 30 minutes of that phone call. And that's the process that we've had approved to deal with any cases of COVID. If that child was to go home and was then diagnosed positively for COVID, we are today and tomorrow being told of the tracking and tracing requirements for knowing that. So if your child was in year 8, the rules might be that you actually have to track their movements for the last, I don't know, 48 hours while they're at school, and anyone they've come into contact through needs to be quarantined for 14 days. That could be the situation. Can I stress could, because it hasn't been confirmed yet, and we're waiting for confirmation of that. So we have systems in place. We have modelled those as best we can without dealing with the real thing, and we are ready for that, yes. So, feel free to jump in. Eden, if we've opted for 100% online learning, you choose to, yes, yep, okay, so Kimberly's replied to that. Matt James has replied there. Anything that you're seeing that you want to jump in on, Matt and Kimberly or Daniela? Because I'm still at the sort of top-ish.
Andy, there's one question that's come up once or twice about the rationale between going alternate days rather than alternate weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a good question, and we have had that. The thinking was, as I said before, that to get your children into a pattern of learning, we felt that the alternate day worked better for their learning. We understood that that might be a potential problem for parents who are juggling work commitments. So I guess, and so I guess what I'd say is that for every family who would prefer alternate days, there's probably another family who would prefer alternate weeks. And I don't know the answer to that. So we've made the decision based on what we think is best for kids' learning, and which is to keep them in a regular pattern of coming to school. That's the long and short of it. Yeah. Keep going.
Excuse me. Sorry, so one question related to that. Is it possible?
Yes, go for it.
Yes, please. Could it be arranged that, for example, if I have two kids in different years, year 6 and year 8, could it be arranged that they have the same days, or is it impossible to do that across the school, all the students?
Another great question again. Yeah, thanks, Rain. Siblings, so we know that primary have done their rostering home by house, and so where we've got siblings, and it doesn't matter whether the siblings are both in secondary or across secondary and primary, we've got a list of sibling children at school. We will do our best. If we have to make exceptions, Rain, we'll do our best to have siblings in on the same days. Yes. And so you'll get a communication around that, because it will be slightly different to maybe a normal year 8 program.
Because it makes it easier for us, we will be with them at home or taking them to school, especially because we are far from the school. Yeah,
totally. And what you'll need to understand, Rain, is let's just say, for example, so Maria's in year 8 this year, isn't she?
Yes.
So on the days where year 8 are at school, obviously she'll be normal. If she is paired up with a sibling and she is in at school on a day where year 8 are not scheduled to be in, she will be in a classroom basically accessing the remote learning. So she'll still be in she'll be in a safe space, but she may still be accessing the learning remotely. That's all right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, if I could just ask another variation of that question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Derek, I can. Thanks.
Yeah. So my question was also for the 1 day on, 1 day off, which you've answered. Assumably, as parents, kids are going to go in. There may be a day or not where they don't feel well. This could be just because of fatigue or because they're feeling sick.
Yeah.
If we want them to be at home on a day they're supposed to come to school, but attend class as in from home for that particular day, given the fact that we just want to be careful whether they're really sick or just not feeling well, can we do that as an option?
Yeah, so can I just be clear? What you're saying is, if you choose for your child to stay at home on any particular day for any particular reason, is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. No different. And the processes for communicating that to us would be normal. Maybe an email to tutor saying, students will not be in today, that will be fine. Daniela, is that right?
Yes, correct. If your child is accessing the learning from home, we will know that, and of course we will mark them as present. If they're too sick to access the learning from home, you can send a note to your form tutor following the normal process, which you will be reminded of at the start of the school year, and then we will mark them as being off school ill. But if they can access their learning from home, of course they'll be marked present.
Okay, thanks. Perfect.
What else was standing out?
Can I just ask a quick question? Sorry to butt in.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the, I very much, actually, let me just say this before I ask the question. I appreciate this is an absolute logistical nightmare, and you are not going to keep every single parent happy. And I very much appreciate your time and effort for all of you at this difficult time. I'm surprised to see that they are going in to school alternative days. I understand your point on, you know, you want them to be in school for every day to access the different lessons, the curriculum. But from a cross-contamination view, I don't know how I feel about this every other day, because you're creating bubbles, but then every other day you've got different children in those rooms. I'm struggling to kind of understand why that decision has been made, why it wouldn't be a whole week in school. Then obviously you would have your normal cleaning routines and then a really deep clean before that next set of children would go in the following week.
Yeah.
I think I've probably read an email correctly, because I think that's kind of that's how I took the first email as well, was that it would be 5 days in and 5 days at home. So I'm a little bit surprised to actually now learn that it is 1 day in, one day for working parents. But obviously we'll have to deal with that. But I'm concerned about, for me, that's just more of a cross-contamination issue.
Okay, it's a really good point, Nikki. So never at any stage in our thinking, certainly the conversations that I've been involved in was the talk of 5 days on and 5 days off. So I'm sorry that you've got that impression. Look, I appreciate that. I think the cleaning regime, at least every night, would be a thorough clean. So and if that's satisfactory, it may not be. I guess one of the reasons for having these Zoom chats was also to scope the feeling from parents around that. So, I mean, if I, for example, was to put out a wee survey to the Year 8 and Year 9 parents, just so, not just this group, but all Year 8 and Year 9 parents, and put 2 options there for the 50-50, and just went with the majority option, because I think we can cope with either option. We looked at both. We just thought that the learning pattern was better if it was alternate days. But actually, if the feeling from the group of parents that sits here, which is you, they're your children, if the feeling from the majority of the group was that you would prefer 5 days on and 5 days off, we would do our best to work with that. So I guess what I'm saying is it worth me putting out a survey to all Year 8 and Year 9 parents this afternoon with simply that question on there? 2 options. If you're deciding
I have a son that's going into Year 10 as well. So,
well, 10 and 12 are in the same situation, but we're speaking with them tomorrow. So yeah. if we get the same situation with them, I'm happy to do the same thing. It just depends on what the feeling is. But I know that I would see, I don't know whether they'd be equal numbers, but I know that I would get both perspectives represented if I asked enough people. Yeah. So I don't disagree with you, Nikki, at all, and I can see your concern, and there is a risk, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm happy to be in the hands of you as a group of parents, and we will adjust our systems if we said, let's put that out as an option. So you either choose alternate days or you choose alternate weeks. Let's take the majority view, and then we will adjust our systems accordingly. Yeah. Would that be acceptable?
I think that would, and I think if I wasn't in the majority, then I would accept that, and that's the way, that's the way it works. Can I also just ask you one more thing?
Absolutely.
I appreciate, obviously, there's been 2 options, either 100% home learning or the 50%, but actually I would be happy for my children to come in more than 50%. I want them back in school. You know, so if there is ever a time where actually you've got more children that are home learning, is it going to be possible that the parents that actually would like their children to be in school more, is that going to be an option for us?
Yeah. Okay. Again, Nikki, a really good question. So it comes back to what I said before. We know that from the last 16 weeks at the end of last year, things changed. And even, I mean, it's a little bit different because last time you didn't have a choice. Now some parents have got a choice, and you're right. So if we were to have space, for example, so if some family said to me, my children will not return to school until, I don't know, Dubai is COVID free, then what you're saying is if we have space, would we have the option to have more of our students at school more often? Look, our thinking is we would like as many of our kids at school as much as possible. Don't get me wrong. The reason that we've got this model at the moment is because we think we can manage this in a way that meets the health and safety requirements and attends to the learning for kids.
I think I'm talking about perhaps more in
the
future, you know, as the weeks go on. If you know, I totally understand, obviously it has to be a certain way initially, but as the weeks kind of roll on, and if there's available seats in school for students, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is would you consider that to be an option that could be put out to parents, you know, that do want their children to be in school more? I mean, I've loved them being at home, don't get me wrong, but I just desperately want them to have that school environment back, you know, as much, obviously as safe as possible, but
so look, without being able to make you any promises about that, trust us that we will be reviewing what we do on a really regular basis. It will be at least monthly, if not more regularly than that, and our wish is that we've got as many of our kids on site safely as we possibly can. So that's our commitment to you guys as parents. So from that little conversation, I'm going to format a really simple questionnaire for Year 8 and Year 9 parents, and we'll go with the majority of you, and we'll communicate that out to you. All right?
That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's keep going. I'm conscious of time. I need to finish in about 5 minutes. Yes, there will be maps coming, more information. What I hope to get you as parents soon is a one-pager so that I can summarise everything for you on the one page. Now, as you can see, if we end up changing to an alternate week model, obviously some of the information on that sheet needs to change. But I would hope soon to get you a one-pager with a map on it, and getting all the information that you need. Easily understandable for you, easily accessible for you. But as I say, things are changing. So squads, as I understand, multi-age squads cannot happen. There is no inter-school competition.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry. I've just spoken to, because there's a few questions about performing arts and sports. I've just spoken to Mrs. Lewis, who's the vice principal in primary, and she oversees our performing arts and sports squads, those groups. She's meeting her leaders about that this week, and she'll send something to parents early next week about access to performing arts and squads. So please just stand by for that.
Okay. Matt or Kimberly, any other questions that stand out for you that we should try and get done in the next few minutes?
I just wanted to sort of reassure parents that the experience of learning, whether that be in the classroom or remote, will be the same. So if there is a class discussion that is taking place in class, your child will still be able to access that discussion from home. They will feel as though they are in school. So those that are in school and those that are home will have the same experience. I know there was a few comments about how collaboration will work. We were collaborating via Teams already. We had different channels where we grouped the children. We were allowing the children to have phone calls with each other. And then obviously if that's a situation where we're in school and maybe we want 4 children to collaborate, they can all have Teams up with their camera on, collaborating as a foursome with a student that's at home at the same time. So no matter whether the child is in school or at home, they will still get that classroom feel and experience and be entirely involved in any collaborative task that we set.
Okay. I think we might draw this to a close. Are there any burning questions from the floor? Probably
Yes,
take one.
can I just get in, please?
Sure, Candice, way you go.
Candice is my daughter. I'm using her Zoom because mine doesn't work.
Sorry.
I'm Sabina, and that's no problem. I had a query is she's going to do home learning 100%.
Yeah.
However, if I do want to start her off and I want to start the school bus services, she would be in a group of children mixed up in the school bus. So that again accounts for cross-contamination. That's my query. How would we handle that? And if they have a tutor group, like you mentioned, there's going to be a home room where all of them can gather together for breaks. I hope I got that right. Is that correct? So if they gather together for tutor time as well, wouldn't that be exposing the entire year 8s?
So tutor time will be in their class group. So if they're in 8A for their class group, that's also their tutor group. So in the mornings, they won't be gathering with other children. They'll just be gathering with members of their class who they will spend the majority of the days that they're in school with. And that's to limit cross-contamination.
So they'll have one tutor per class?
They'll have one tutor. They'll have a tutor group and they'll have a form tutor, but they'll be in that same class for year 8. Year 9 is different because of options, but for year 8, they will be with that same group for most of the day, but they will have different teachers going to them.
I agree. So are you saying that year 8 will have one form tutor?
Yes. So each class is split up into A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yes.
And then a form tutor will be allocated to that class and they will see them every morning.
So all the year 8s will never be together at one point in time?
Not the whole year group.
All right. Thank you. So just the bus issue, please, because we're concerned about sending them by the home transport because of this cross-contamination and we stay quite far. So how would you resolve this in case you were sent?
So my understanding is that everyone, all children will be scanned before they get on the bus. And if you are hot, but you won't be allowed on the bus to start with. That protects everyone who's not hot on the bus. Having single year level buses for secondary is not financially
it's not. Yes.
Responsibility. So the first responsibility falls with parents in terms of if my child is a bit peaky or not well, then keep them at home. The second one would fall with the scanning on the bus, and then what happens if your child is hot, then they can't get on the bus. And obviously if we do that well, then we are doing about as much as we can. But I agree with you, but we can't avoid the mixed level buses. I think the other thing that they've done for me, which you probably already know, is they've reduced the capacity on the buses. So
yes, but that still doesn't eliminate the chances of a contraction.
No, it doesn't, but yeah, well, it reduces the numbers of people on the bus, which in one sense does, but I get your point. But that's what they've done at the moment. Yeah. That's
fine. I understand. There's nothing that you can do about it. So that's the reason we've decided to wait it out until UAE is completely free of the virus. Thank you.
Okay.
Very quickly, Andy, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think I saw 2 or 3 people ask about setting. For core subjects, so we're looking at English, maths and science. For year 8, students will stay in the same class. So for early days originally anyway, they will stay in their 8A or 8B. So year 7 and 8 will not be set. But year 9, within their bubble, will remain in their sets within reason from last year. So there will be some small class movements, but they'll all be occurring on the same floor within classrooms adjoining and very near each other. So they'll be very clearly supervised. But so for year 9, it is different to 7 and 8 in the sense that year 9 core subjects will still be set.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Folks, I think we'll draw this to an end. It has been recorded, so we will make the recording available to you. Can I just say, I really appreciate you coming on and your questions and your honesty and your concerns. We need to hear all that. Obviously, we're working hard every day to get this refined and better each day. So my takeaways from this, 2 things. One, obviously, we'll make the recording available to you. The second thing is that we'll get that survey up to you with those options. I think what we'll do is we'll put 3 options on there, Nikki. We might go alternate days, alternate weeks, or don't mind. And then we'll go from there. And then we'll make a decision from there. Is that all right? And that will go out to all Year 8 and Year 9 parents, and we'll go from there. So thanks very much for your time. There will be more information coming out. If you feel like you've got something urgent, then you can email us here at school and do that at any time you need to. And otherwise, we'll be in touch. Tomorrow will be your next communication with House and Tutor Group, and there'll be a steady stream of communication coming through between now and the start of school. Enjoy your afternoon. Thanks very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.